Can everyone see my screen? All good? Yeah, perfect. Okay, so just gonna make a quick intro and explain a few things about how the session will run and talk a little bit about the community. So welcome to the meetup. Thank you all for making it virtually. It's also good to see some familiar faces in the crowd. So a few words about who I am and why I'm organizing this meetup. Those of you who know me know that I'm a data scientist. I've been in this area for a long time. Involved in a few different things. I'm partly involved with academia, with institutions like UCL and London Business School, but I'm also very active in the space of data science education, running the TESSERACT Academy, where we educate decision makers on how to use data science. I recently also created a data science school for individuals who want to learn how to use data science and organizations that want to upskill their employees. I've also written up a book on the topic. Anyone is interested to know more about data science from a high-level perspective, just drop me an email. I'm more than happy to share my book. This is my website. You can find me there. I'm enthusiastic not only about data science, but also but mostly about the applications of data science. And marketing, I believe, is one of these areas where data science can make a huge difference. Okay, I mean, the AI and data science can make a huge difference in probably every area. I guess you expect to hear this from a data scientist, but marketing is one of those areas where you have just like loads of data and loads of money and so many interesting problems to solve. And I think it makes sense to organize meetings around this to get professionals together from many different kinds of expertise and specializations, whether they're data scientists, marketers, people in between, and share their opinions and views. And we started this meetup last year. So we had one session in Founders Factory. I think it was roughly about a year and a month ago, which was quite interesting session. And what has been very fascinating is that since last year, we've seen many positive things happening in this space. New tools coming out, new methods, more awareness of how data science can be used in marketing. So I thought that it would be good to do like a virtual get-together, since it looks like people will not be holding any real-life meetups anytime soon. So that at least anyone who's interested in this area, we can just come together and exchange opinions and share ideas about this fascinating topic. So the schedule, today we're very lucky to have three great speakers and with like different backgrounds. And we'll start with Oren, who's going to talk about the joys of using natural language processing to map targeting topics. Then Emmanuel, who is a lecturer at the University of Greenwich. He's going to talk us about his work, which relates a lot to data privacy. And then finally, Matthew, who's the founder of Woolf Consulting, will give a very interesting talk about how AI is used these days in marketing. And a few details about the logistics. Zoom is a great tool, but it's not perfect. So it's great for some things, bad for others. So I'd kindly ask you to be on mute while our presenters are talking. And after the end of the presentation, there's going to be a 5-minute Q&A session. And please write any questions you have in the chat room, and then I can unmute you and maybe you can interact with the speaker. I'll have to act as a moderator so we can keep things tidy and organized, because otherwise Zoom can get a bit chaotic. At the end of all the presentations, we're going to run a short panel, maybe 5-10 minutes, where we're going to have a bit of a more open discussion with the audience and the presenters about the future of AI and data science in marketing. So that was it from me. And now, Oren, if you'd like maybe to start your presentation and share your screen, I'm going to place myself on mute.
Just confirming, can you see my screen? Okay, I'm going to assume that's a yes.
Yep, all good.
Great. So the joys of using natural language processing to map marketing topics. So what we wanted to do, this is an interesting question I had in my mind while I was mapping skills for marketing for a different project. I was curious about marketing trends. And when you think about Google trends, like here, for instance, you put Facebook and you put Snapchat, and you can see, since November 2019, over a 12-month period, Facebook has out-eclipsed Snapchat, disproportionately in terms of total search volume. And this is great. It's really cool. Like, you put the data, it's free. You understand the relationship between the two different brands, but it has its limitations. And the limitation is you need to know what you're looking for, right? You need to actually put in Facebook and Snapchat into it. So if you don't exactly know what to put in, you're not going to be able to discover what you don't know. So it kind of seems obvious once you say it. So that's one of the issues. The next problem is search volume is non-specialized. What does that mean? It means it's an aggregate of everyone who's using Google, which you don't know if it's B2B, B2C. So it's not useful for specific context. So if you're a B2B marketeer and you're a CMO, and I work as an on-demand CMO and I help different businesses with their marketing challenges, I need to understand what's going on in the marketing landscape. If you think about it, that's actually probably the most significant quality that's non-specific. You can't really evaluate it in an interview, but it's probably one of the most pertinent qualities that defines expertise, right? It's like, how much do you know, and how on top are you of what's going on and changes in the area that you specialize in. The third limitation of Google Trends, if you think about it, is it doesn't tell you terms that are really highly related. It will show you related terms that are highly search correlated, but it's not going to show you the terminology or the lexicon of terms highly related to the specific terms that you're putting in. Just high search volume terms that are correlated closely, but not like synonyms or different variables and variations. So it has its limitations. So then the question was, how do I build this alternative, more effective tool, or not more effective, but more specific or a bit different? And the idea I came up with was, I'm going to take the top 100 marketing blogs in the world. So this is an example of some of the 4 of the top 100. And I'm going to rank them by total traffic that they receive. And I get this from a third-party tool. If you're curious about that, you can ping me a message later. I'll explain. And what I did is I went and I fetched 120,000 blog posts, all the blog posts over a 5 years period for these 100 blog posts. So then you have a lot of text. And then you're kind of like, okay, great. How do I use this unstructured text, which is, it's very difficult from a natural language processing point of view, and cluster that into material topics that I can build a smart Google Trends? So obviously, machine learning, we kind of, there's 2 main approaches, the unsupervised and supervised. Now, a lot of this presentation actually is AI, and I'm not a data scientist, right? So I'm limited in my capacity or capability to give you more information on this. Actually, Stylianos is probably a lot better in explaining the specifics, but I can explain it conceptually and you'll get the gist. So here, the unsupervised is finding logical groupings between the different words and the topics and putting them to something that's a discrete groups that make sense. Supervised, on the other hand, it's kind of like we define the delineation of those groups and it provides a boundary. So the unsupervised is kind of finding patterns in the data, where the supervised is kind of, we're defining those categories that the machine is going to take those words and topics and classify them. Now, data has a lot of noise in it, the raw data. So we use tokenization. There's an example of what tokenization does. It kind of breaks up the sentence into lots of little bits of words. And effectively, what's the benefit? It helps interpret the meaning of the text by analyzing the sequence of the words. And this is kind of a foundational key step in natural language processing, NLP, in order to clean up and understand the context and relevance of the data. Then we use n-grams. So an n-gram is effectively, as you can see, the probability of a word showing up based on the sequence of previous words. And if you get a lot of data, you can start to get pretty good predictive power over what the probability of words showing up in a certain sequence is going to look like. And then the third one is a very popular one. It's TF-IDF, which effectively is evaluating term frequency relative to inverse document frequency. And effectively, it's trying to say, if words appear based on frequency, and they're very, very frequent, they're probably not very meaningful. Why? Because they're very common words. But if a word appears more rare, it's less usual to show up, it's more likely that it has a bit more weighting to it. So it's a statistical measure that's used in NLP to help you identify what words have more value or more merit to them. So, okay, great. So we clean up the data. We understand what we need to be trying to do. We need to take all this list of words and classify that into specific topics. The question obviously is, how do you do that? So you got to clean up the data, which we did, and now you got to label it. So the first method we used was called LDA, and effectively it just assumes that the documents are produced from a mixture of topics, and the topics generates words based on their probability distribution. Effectively, it like speculatively takes groupings and comes up with like theoretical groups that algorithmically. So it's not really defined. It kind of does it based on the frequency of the words that it's finding and figures out relationships between them. And that completely failed. So we tried to run LDA. We managed to classify the terms. It just wasn't particularly effective. So then we tried a different method, and this was hierarchical clustering, which is effectively you group the documents into clusters, and each cluster is distinct from each other, and the objects in each cluster are broadly similar to each other as well. So effectively, it's like all bananas and all oranges are fruit, and like motorbikes and cars are vehicles, and therefore fruit and vehicles are two different groups. So it's kind of trying to understand the relationships of the documents and see is there some sort of like meaningful labeling that you can group all these documents. The documents have something in common amidst them. And as you probably guessed, that didn't go so well either, and that was a fail. We didn't successfully succeed in labeling. So then we tried a third one, non-negative matrix factorization, and actually after about 20 minutes of trying to find a simple way to explain it, I gave up. So what I did is I decided to explain it to you relative to LDA. So LDA is probabilistic, NMF uses matrix factorization. The easiest way to think of this is documents is like the A figure, the topics is a W, and it tries to understand the relationship spatially between them and give you some sort of more narrow relationship between the documents and the topics. And as you can imagine, that failed too. I mean, this is a failure over like 6 or 7 months of messing around natural language processing. It's quite a frustrating experience to keep failing. But I'm annoyingly persistent. So unsupervised failed. I kind of went, this is painful. This is difficult. This isn't working. I'm getting quite frustrated here. I'm a practical guy. I want to get results. I have a vision for how this tool is going to help people. I don't want to keep messing around in the theoretical land of NLP algorithms. So then I thought, I'm not happy with the labels. So, I mean, it's not like it wasn't labeling. All three of them were providing some percentage of matching of labels. It's just that the labels were not accurately representative of how I envisioned the topical relationships. So, if I said to you, the algorithm spits out car, banana, fruit, and rocket, you're just like, I don't understand what these have in common. This isn't making sense to me in terms of how it's classifying it. And LDA specifically created a lot of excess noise. And then we had to go and manually try and understand what is it labeling? Like, why is it coming up with these labels? And trying to understand how a machine labels things, reverse engineering it to understand the logic, practically, drove me nuts. And then after a few hours of trying to manually figure it out, I kind of going, okay, this is definitely another way forward. So I said, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to do it myself. I'm going to label I'm just going to create the classification hierarchy as I see fit. So then these are some examples. You've got software like HubSpot and Buffer and Google ad platform, right? It's kind of like in between the channel and the software. And then you have Facebook ads and Quora ads, and that's channels. Then you have a lot of acronyms and jargon like CPA, cost per acquisition, or CAC, cost of customer acquisition, or CTR, click-through rate. So marketing has a lot of jargon, as you can imagine. And you need to capture that. And then company names, there's a lot of software providers, about 7,198 in the marketing technology landscape. How are you going to differentiate them? So you have to go and capture the labels. The machine's not going to be able to do that. So we started creating manual labels. And then we used search expressions. I'm not going to go into search expressions like regex. Effectively, it's like it allows you to use like a textual analysis to find a search pattern in text. And this is the closest visual image I can find to what a regular expression looks like. And then we also used multinomial naive Bayes. I swear that the data scientists, they really do love their complex acronyms and terminology. And effectively, this takes the list of all the different words, and then we, using this methodology, kind of classifies them, and we managed to label about 70% of 120K articles, which is pretty good result. But the labels were really wrong. And then, very much like this child taking a consistent beating, I was frustrated with the data scientist, and I realized usually if I'm frustrated with someone, they're not the problem. It's like, you know, classic story in my personal life as well. So it's like, okay, what were the assumptions that I was making, or what were we doing wrong here? That, you know, got this, the data scientist is super smart, all of these cutting edge methodologies, and we're constantly failing. What was the reason? And then what I realized was I'm trying to take multiple documents and assign a label to them. So you take multiple documents and you got Facebook, great. You have multiple other documents and you label them as Snapchat, and you're like, okay, great, happy days. And that's pretty easy. What do you do when the document has 16 other labels? What if it has Facebook and Snapchat? And then I'm like, you know, no wonder I'm constantly disappointed with the algorithm. It's because I'm asking it to do something that's practically impossible. Like, how is it going to know what label is more important than other labels? So then we changed it to a multi-label methodology, like super simple, like, you know, but like when you're getting the data set from the machine, you're not thinking about simplicity. You're just trying to understand, why is it spitting out this result? And here what you could see is, you know, you got one document, is like an example of a blog post document, and it's picking out labels based on specific entities inside the document. And once we kind of transition to a multi-label approach, we started to make good progress. And this is where we're currently at. What we have is we have an admin interface to create the manual labeling. Then we have an API that effectively leverages regular expressions and multinomial naive Bayes. I don't even know if I pronounced that correctly. So at this point, you're kind of going, wait a second, if you're using manual labels and regex, why do you need the multinomial? And the reason is, as you get more data in, we want to try and teach it how to classify and identify new topics, right? But also regex is limited in how much, in what it can capture. So we want this kind of layer of sophistication on top of manual labeling to try and turn this into really smart little algo. And this is actually what it looks like. So this is the output. So this is where we've gotten to now. You can actually see this is from March 31st, 2018. And this is a total count of frequency of mentions of SEO, content marketing, and Facebook. These are not like for like. This is an example. But you can kind of actually see, quite interestingly enough, Facebook is in decline in terms of how frequently it's being mentioned compared to 2018, while SEO is increasing, and so is content marketing, which at one point Facebook was out eclipsing it, which is quite interesting. You can see content marketing is kind of a constant increase. Now, this is just 3 of many, 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 many labels, excluding, you know, the software, which is on its own 7,182 labels, just a software category. So there's like thousands of labels in marketing, and the marketing lexicon itself is quite sizable. Probably I've estimated between 800 and about 3,000 words, just in terms of acronyms, terminology, core concepts, a lot of synonyms, obviously. That's it. So that's my last slide. So just to recap, we tried to build a predictive Google Trends like little machine over the last 9 months. And despite many, many failed attempts, we finally managed to get it to a place that I'm quite happy with it now. And now we're just building an interface to try and streamline the efficiency and get the visualization going. And that's it. That's my little presentation. I hope you found that interesting and hopefully helpful.
Great. Thank you, Oren. Very, very interesting. I might ping you on WhatsApp later to discuss more about the technical details. It was pretty interesting. That's an extension of the work you presented last year, correct?
It's actually, it's completely new person, completely new, different skills and completely different data set. So even though they're very parallels, what I was showing last year was attempting to do skills. And what I wanted to do is understand, because like effectively, if you think about skills and marketing, and you kind of go, what is the most popular job title in marketing? And it's marketing manager. The problem is it's like so prevalent. It's like it captures 60% of all the job titles in the marketing universe. And it's also the least descript. And actually, if you think about it, it's so nondescript, it's meaningless. Like if a marketing manager can do 10 things and a different job marketing manager can do 10 different things, then the term doesn't mean anything. And actually that's what's happening in marketing is you have all these skills unrelated to job titles. So what we need to do is help people navigate writing job ads so they can find the right talent, because it's a real problem in marketing where people, they're reading job descriptions and they're thinking these skills are completely unrelated to job title. So, but what we've done is we've found an entirely new way of mining the data. And as a result, that's changed the whole way for us to try and categorize it. So this is a parallel project to that project, and they're all interlinked to the product I'm building. But they're not, they're different technology, different people.
I see. I see. Matthew has a question. Matthew just sent you a request to unmute if you want to speak.
Sure, just based on what you're seeing, it'd be, I mean, what are the growing things? Where are the trends going to be for next year, do you think, based on the information you're seeing? What's growing?
Yeah, when we have all the graphs working, then I'll be happy to answer that question. We're not quite there yet.
Okay.
That's the thing with data scientists, it's never ending.
Valeria also has a question. Nice to see you, Valeria.
Hi, nice to be here, and very interesting the sharing of your experiences with everyone. So the question is that you've started in a certain way to try to solve this problem, and this was by having single labels per document. And this could have been a factor of the failure of the unsupervised methods that you used. Have you considered if that change would affect the outcome and the quality of the results of the unsupervised methods that you used? So maybe thinking about trying something again on the some other unsupervised method again now that you've reached
great.
to this.
Got it. Let me confirm and answer the question. So essentially you're saying, now that I've gone from single label to multi-label, have I considered going back to unsupervised learning instead of sticking to supervised learning? Is that right?
Yes, because maybe the quality of the results might be better now that you're using multiple labels.
So I guess it's a two-sided question. So first part of the two-sided answer. So the first part of the answer is, I don't believe unsupervised learning is going to capture the universe on its own, because for example, software, it doesn't know if HubSpot is software or if Facebook is software or if Facebook is a channel and software, right? So there's delineation of this classification, especially for the big popular terms or big players. Can you train it necessarily to just do that? Yeah. Is that what I'm trying to do in the core of teaching it? No, not really. So I think it's probably easier to do some sort of manual labeling, but from experience with both Monkey Learn and Ato, both really amazing tools, I'll paste them in the chat in a second. I found like the NLP with unsupervised has incredible predictive power, and everything above sort of 75, 80% in terms of predictive rate tends to be very accurate. So I do believe that unsupervised learning, once trained properly with the right data set, will get an incredible result. Yeah, but not on its own independently without me teaching the chick to fly a little. So I think the best is going to be a combo from my experience so far.
Yeah, if I can add something here, I mean, unsupervised learning is a notoriously hard problem. And I think a large part of the work in the machine learning community has focused on finding the right priors for unsupervised learning, which means that you need to have a starting point, otherwise the machine doesn't know what patterns to look for. I mean, they find some patterns, probably they're not very useful to you. And I think in language, we've seen this a lot with the pre-trained transformers, where you have things like GPT-3 by OpenAI, which have been trained on huge corpora of text, and then they can be very easily fine-tuned to other contexts. So I guess if you had some kind of pre-trained algorithm which could really understand what HubSpot is, let's say, then unsupervised learning might work well in this situation. just an assumption. But it's obviously a non-trivial approach, right? Cool. Anyone else? Okay, you shared. If there are other questions, then I guess we can thank Oren and move on to Emmanuel. Thanks, Oren. Emmanuel, I would kindly ask you to share your screen, and I will turn myself to mute.
Okay. Share screen, share screen. I guess you can see my screen. Okay. Thank you so much. Again, this is my first time being here, so thank you so much for the invite. I think as we said at the beginning during the introduction, my audience seems to be different. So my name is Emmanuel Mogaji. I'm a lecturer at University of Greenwich. So I teach advertising, digital marketing, and advertising. I also do research. So my PhD was on advertising financial services in the UK to understand the types of emotional appeals the banks were using. But now I'm just trying to then understand the role of digital marketing in reaching out to vulnerable customers. So now this is not just a typical customers. These are customers who are vulnerable in terms of their finances, in terms of their financial well-being. So trying to really understand how we market to using digital media, digital marketing to reach out to consumers who I would describe as perhaps not being able to take full control of their data. So to set the scenario, it's just like trying to apply for a payday loan. So often, if you want to apply for a loan, you are more likely to go to your bank and to ask them, you know what, I need some money, and they have to do some credit check, and yes, they can give you. But now we've got some individuals who perhaps because of some situations, because of poor management, they've not been able to access financial services from, let's say, the high street banks. So they are often more likely to engage with payday loans. And so that's why I just tried to understand the key stakeholders here, the key terms. So in terms of financial vulnerable customers, so these are people who perhaps may not have a regular job, and therefore they often want to explore other means. So like alternative and payday loan seems to be the easy way out. So previously, you might want to go to the high street and apply for a payday loan, but with technology and also with COVID now, often you're more likely to do it in the comfort of your house. You're more likely to just fill a form and they get back to you. But my main concern here is actually the back end of those things. So like if you've given out your information, do you know how many people are accessing that information? So you think you are just trying to get a loan from somebody, from a company, let's say Wonga.com, yes, you can imagine, but you don't know how many people Wonga has shared your information with. So you might think, yes, I'm just coming here to collect £100, but you are more likely to be in that fictitious loop. Like, yes, you think you have collected £1,000 for this, and the next time you think you are paying off, there's another advertisement that is coming to your way to remind you you can get a loan from us to pay that loan. The next time you are trying to pay that again, there's that advert coming to you. So how is artificial intelligence being integrated into digital marketing for financial services and vulnerable customers? So those are the things I've tried to put together in a paper that he is working on, and came up with this conceptual illustration like to see how everything works together. So ultimately, it starts from the data, and the data often perhaps from the financial services providers, or again, maybe from external partners like credit brokers, credit agencies, mobile, other web technologies. But the key implications here are actually, my main concern is the ethical collections of those information and how they are being used to make a decisions. So for example, if the information is meant to be sent to a target or to target audience, there's this possibility of denying you the funds, denying the customer the fund. Perhaps if the information they have about that individual is not satisfactory, or it doesn't align with the algorithm that the AI system has been used to develop, and also therefore recognizing the impact of this. So I've identified 7 key implications here that I think I would like to share, perhaps as marketers and also as developers. So I must acknowledge I'm not a developer, but I'm also interested in the ethics and the way we collect and use information for marketing purposes, albeit in a case whereby we don't even have much control over it. So we talk about, yes, that access to high quality and large volumes. So because people are now able to fill their fill forms online to apply for loans, they can just think, yes, I'm feeling I just need a loan. These informations are out there for marketers, for even other payday loans companies to use this information to target them. So in most cases, they are just thinking, I'm giving this information to apply for a loan. But again, it's more like having that individual in the control, in the web of those who control the data, because then that can be used to target them with some other relevant information. It could even be targeted towards maybe gambling, thinking, okay, you are not getting loan, but they can share this information for other businesses as well that make you even more prone to make you even more vulnerable in terms of your financial expenses. So that access to high volume and high quality and large volume of data. And again, the ethical collection. How much information do we need to collect about people? Is it because we know that, yes, they want to get this loan, they give out everything, and because of that, they've ticked that button that says, oh, yes, I accept all terms and conditions? Does that guarantee that, yes, information should just be shared? What's that ethical processing? Again, it's trying to really understand, perhaps, are there some bias that are integrated into these designs to make sure some people are less favored in terms of decisions? And also that leads to the processing of that information, whereby we need to recognize the human connection in the development and the deployment of this system. So if you've designed a system that, yes, is to extract and to crawl a lot of data, but how is that being used to make a decision? Who are those people that are in control? Yes, we know GDPR is out there, but are there still ways that we can circumnavigate this and find our ways around it? Again, these are just some of the questions I'm raising for us to think and ponder about. Then, no, yes, sorry. I think I'll just go with the heading. I think my key point seems to be repeating itself. So in terms of the delivery of information, how are we sending this information out? Perhaps through digital media, perhaps through maybe their social media. Again, could it be the website these vulnerable customers visit, and therefore we get the same information that keeps pulling them inside this debt? Maybe today you've gotten a loan, tomorrow there's another advert that is being sent your way for you to get a loan. Another time is a gambling advert. Another time is for you to come and play a game, because they know that, yes, you are in the loop and they can keep targeting you. So where does the human connection comes into this? Like I said previously, if it was on high street, somebody can tell you, Emmanuel, you've been getting this loan. Come on, is there a way we can support you? Because there is that somebody that sees you every day that says, okay, you came here yesterday for £100, you came 2 days ago for £200. Is there a way we can help you? But now that we've got the machines really taking responsibility and doing all these things, where does the human connection comes in here? Do we have somebody that can actually override the decision of the machine and say, okay, hold on, we know what is going on and I can make a decision? So it's just one of those things I'm trying to then consider. And lastly, try to understand the feedback loop in how people engage with this. So if I've noticed that, yes, a lot of payday loans has been sent my way, do I have a control over this? Do these customers know where to go? Who will they talk to? Is this something they've observed, or they just think, yes, I like it? But again, that feedback loop, recognizing the fact that, yes, they might like the fact that they keep getting the adverts. But in all of these, my main concern, like I said earlier on, is to identify these particular individuals, but because they are different from the ones you actually go like to the normal high street bank, you can decide and you can make an informed decision about what to get. But now that we've got artificial intelligence operating behind the scene, making decisions, do they just keep giving loans, or you have somebody, you have that control, like a tap to lock it and say, no, I'm not really giving you this, and you need to stop, and we need to do something about it. So that's just my whole presentation for today, to recognize that, yes, while we see benefits in artificial intelligence and marketing, we need to recognize that, yes, there are different customers that we are engaging with, and often one system might not fit all. So like one cap or one design might not fit all. And that's why we need to be mindful of the way we collect information, the way we store it, the way we process it, and also recognizing the fact that, yes, human might have to come in to take a decision. So thank you so much, and I'll be willing to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Emmanuel. I may start with a question I have. I wanted to ask you, do you think that the existing legal frameworks with GDPR and similar, do you think they're enough to protect vulnerable customers? And if no, what's your opinion as to what else the regulator could do or society could do if, maybe the regulator is not something that they should be involved in?
Yeah, thank you so much. And that's something I've been exploring as well. I would think the GDPR does not specifically look into those kind of customers. And also, as you can imagine, as marketers, we find our ways of going and around things. I was looking at a website, it's got about 200 plus cookies, like, yes, tracking me, sharing this information. Perhaps they will tell me I have ticked it, and I says, you know what, Emmanuel, I said, oh, let's say Daily Mail, thank you so much, I am fine for 300 people to be following me and be tracking me. But again, in terms of vulnerable customers, I think that is where that education comes in. For them to recognize, you know what, something is fishy, yes, something is going wrong, and then to know what to do. Perhaps to know who to talk to and say, please, would you remove my data? Something is happening. I have observed things. So I think the regulation is there to protect everybody, but we also need to recognize there's need for that information, that education. And again, that's where some charity organization comes in, that yes, they need to educate people and to let them know, if you've observed something, you need to be able to recognize that something is going on. Because I will tell you, marketers will not hesitate in sending you the information. It's just left for the individuals to have the knowledge and to know, yes, as something is going on, I need to take actions.
I see. Very interesting. Anyone? Any other questions? Okay. See, there are no questions. So if there are no questions, then thank you. I'd like to thank Emmanuel for his presentation. And Matthew, I'd like to kindly ask you to share your screen and start your presentation. I'm going to go on mute now.
Absolutely, that'd be great. Thanks, guys. Might just take me a minute just to set my screen. I'm hoping to play some sound, so please let me know if the sound doesn't work. And I think I've ticked the right box, but you just never know, do you? Can everyone see that? Let me play that. Is that live for everyone? Stelios?
So far, it's okay.
Good.
We don't hear anything.
Great.
This is just great.
Not yet. No, I'm playing some video, a couple of short videos. So okay. Later on. So yeah, I'm looking at how AI is going to, I think, going to liberate some creativity in the marketing space. And I'm going to look at the innovators who are doing that using machine learning and so on to generate and optimize content. And so the agenda quickly, I'm going to quickly talk about who I am, keep that to the minimum. I'm going to talk about the problem I think we need to solve, which I'm calling the proliferation problem. And then we'll look at some people who are trying to solve that problem. It should fly fairly quickly through it. Who am I? Very quickly, 20-year career across marketing, media and entertainment. I was head of interactive at MTV for 6 years. I've been a senior executive in Adland, making digital and social content. And I also have a certificate from MIT in AI and the implications for business strategy. And I have a little bit of knowledge and expertise in sort of data science, machine learning, but I'm fairly basic, probably Oren's level, I would say. So that's me. My business, Woolf, basically advises two kinds of businesses: AI-powered businesses, startups, help them take their technology to market, or kind of regular businesses who now want to realize those opportunities. And I sort of help them analyze and identify those and build business cases around that. And we really do focus on the kind of creative industries and marketing and so on, media. So that said, the world has changed. We all know this, I guess. You know, the biggest number really is, or the most key number is access to the internet. It's grown massively from 300 million 20 years ago to 5 billion now. But obviously there's a bunch of technology around that. It goes without saying, broadband, mobile, particularly has enabled a lot of access. And with mobile came other channels, such as the growth of other channels like social media, search, and so on and so on. And what that's meant for marketers, and sort of more importantly, is that the world has sort of changed from a world where it was really about kind of some relatively few big broadcast channels. I don't know how old everyone is out on the call, or also what sort of where you're from, but I hope most of you recognize at least one of these images. You know, they were big, bold, brand advertising. And in this era of this kind of marketing, you know, the targeting was very, very broad. You basically, because you couldn't really target, you know, very tightly on television. Maybe you could, you know, focus on a particular TV region. You might have a show might have a bias towards men or older men, or, you know, a different, you know, ABC ones, whatever, but you couldn't really guarantee it. So we moved from this world of very big, this is a world sort of when I sort of joined the industry, it was very much what it was like. And now we're in a world that's sort of a bit more like this, where, so this is just an interesting map of how you kind of target audiences on Facebook. It might be a bit small for some of you, but you don't need to know the detail. The point being that there are just so many ways you can target, and you can go down to such a tight segmented audience. And it's not just Facebook that does this. It's, you know, there's 30 other channels that are doing the same. You know, it's CRM, email, banners, search, podcasts. So this has become a real challenge. Just this alone has become a sort of massive challenge for marketers. It's led to an exponential rise in the quantity of ad content that's required, because not only are you targeting more specifically, but there's more of it. So you have to kind of deal with this fatigue and freshness issue. We're confronted with ads just so often throughout our day, so much more than just turning on a radio and hearing ads every now and again, or watching TV and seeing a couple of ads every 15 minutes. We're seeing kind of, you know, every time you scroll, you're seeing something. So there's a huge, there's a squeeze on. This is Ollie Feldwick from the AND Partnership, which is a sort of marketing network company based here in London. Agencies need to produce more content in more places faster than ever before for less. To keep up, agencies are struggling to keep their head above water. Creativity is increasingly cast aside. And the term he kind of coined for this was the creativity deficit. So basically he's saying that demand for creativity and content is going up, but actually there's only so much that, you know, humans are sort of capable, and we've gone past that point, and it's an ever growing gap between what those two things can do. So that's the problem I guess we're facing in our setup. And yay, woohoo, yay, AI to the rescue here. AI tools are a kind of really important answer, I think, to this. And I'm going to look at 3 businesses that are using AI at their sort of at the core of their business to help answer this question. Quick disclaimer: I have 0 interest in these companies. I don't have any shares. I'm not on commission or anything. They just think 3 companies that sort of come to my attention are doing interesting work. First is in the sort of social marketing space, and it's a company called Pencil. They're based in Singapore, startup based out there, and they've got this kind of end-to-end system which works to generate ads, and you upload creative assets that you have. It then generates content which you then export into your ads manager, and then you get back obviously you get back performance, how they perform, but also that kind of goes back to the beginning again and informs the system and allows you to generate better ads. They work mostly in the Facebook ecosystem, and effectively what it's doing is their system is generating layouts and lines. So there's a sort of part of their system that's generating content using NLG and other systems, and then they've got a kind of almost in a GAN kind of way. They then have another system which filters both for effectiveness, but also kind of brand, how on brand it is. So it starts to learn, so your content starts to become more and more efficient and more, you know, but all the while staying on brand, because it's all very well being efficient, but saying something crazy that your brand would never say, it just doesn't work in marketing. So they've got a really interesting system. I'm going to show you a short video now. If you can't hear the volume, Stylianos, let me know. You can sort of just give me a wave your hand or something, or thumbs up will be good, if thumbs down will be bad. So I'm going to show you a quick video of their CEO and founder, a guy called Will Hanschel. I'm not going to show you the whole video. I'm going to sort of just come in halfway through. He's just shown you how to upload a bunch of content, and now he's about to push the button to generate the ads. So let's see if this works.
Let's click generate and see what we get. The platform takes about 20 minutes to generate you 9 ads and dozens of lines of copy for review. Let's come back in 20 minutes and see what we've got. All right, we're back. As you can see here, the system has generated 9 unique ads to test based on the brief that we put in. It's given us some 6-second cuts, 10-second cuts, and also some 15-second cuts. That's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and watch some. All right, let's check out a 10-second one. Nice. 15 seconds. Cool, okay. So there's a couple of things we can do now. One thing that you may have noticed first though is that we've also got a predictions panel over here on the right. What this is doing is giving you an idea of whether the system thinks each ad that's been generated is going to work or not. So as you can see here, it's telling you that it's comparing the ads that have been generated to 10 ads that you've already run on Facebook. You need to select your goal, targeting, and metric, and using that information on past ads, the system will give you a prediction. 62 means that the system thinks that this ad, concept 1, is going to work better than 62% of the ads that you've run on Facebook already. And it's going to tell you why. This ad is quite heavy on product imagery.
I'm going to stop there. So you get the idea. It's generating, I mean, the key thing for me was like, so it's generated me 9 ads in 20 minutes. That's really a process that might normally take days, weeks, months, and involve quite a lot of people doing work that frankly isn't necessarily that interesting either. And here on this slide, you can just see some testimonial from some of their clients. They're still a little bit in beta, so it's sort of still as early days, but they've they've got more and more brands sort of coming on board. Sephora, which is a makeup brand here, saying that they've click-through improvements of 50%. And then Kellogg's saying that they saw 20% improvement in effectiveness, however that's measured, and a 24% reduction in production costs. So clearly, I think this is, you know, a really, really interesting new business, and really interested to see where they go next. They've hired a really big heavy hitter from Facebook, actually, out in the West Coast to help them kind of move it forward. Let's look now at email. This is Parry Malm, Canadian, lives in London, and he says he's the founder of Phrasey. He says every time you buy something, you go through a funnel which is driven by the written word. You read what people actually say, the product information, the reviews. Language is the currency of e-commerce. So he's all about language here, and particularly as it applies to email. I'll quickly show this, a 1 minute long cut.
You write 2 subject lines and split test them. One of them wins. Why? There's hundreds of possible reasons. Quantifying human language wasn't possible for marketers until now. Phrasey uses artificial intelligence to quantify, generate, and optimize email subject lines. Phrasey understands the emotions, sentiments, and phrases that resonate with your audience. Your past, present, and future results drive advanced algorithms that generate better subject lines than humans can, all tailored to your brand's voice. You get more opens, clicks, and conversions. Phrasey's artificial intelligence technology.
Okay, so again, sort of similarly to Pencil, the way they do it is they have 2 systems working, 2 AI-driven systems working against each other. One creates thousands of variants of wording, and this is what Parry calls thousands of Don Drapers working for you. And the other is a ranker that ranks those different outputs against you know, brand and effectiveness again. So it's in a way similar to Pencil, but obviously in a different channel. And they've had, again, pretty good results. People are more likely to open these emails from 11% up to 42%. Looks like Dixon Carphone Warehouse maybe was starting from a worse place than Virgin. They sort of generally have much higher numbers. And then they're also much more likely to click on something in the email. So in the kind of these extreme examples, they're almost twice as likely. So it's a really massive impact, you know, even at Virgin, 89%. So that's really interesting. It's a real life case. It's really working. I think that's always something to look at in this space. A lot of noise and a lot of chatter, but not everyone delivers. So I think Phrasey are really interesting from that point of view. Then lastly, just sort of display ads. Patrick Collister used to run the creative shop at Google. He's now working for a company called AdLib. And as he says, there are 13 different shapes and sizes just for banner ads. And what they do is they have software to automate that at the touch of a button instead of needing a studio, slicing through costs dramatically. He would say that, I suppose, but let's have a look, see if the proof of the pudding's in the eating. So what their system does is basically resize, take away the pain of resizing display ads. So they select here, and you'll sort of see this little video, but it'll select, depending on the banner side, it automatically crop into the right size for that particular image, and it does that by understanding what the image is and what's in it. And they actually do the same, not just for still banners, but they do the same for video. So you can, if this plays, is it going to play? Oh, maybe not. Well, it's not working, but the point being they've got an original video, maybe it's 30 or 60 seconds long, and the machine, their algorithm will again cut it and edit it to different lengths. And they do this through a thing they call memorability scores. They have this intelligent automation which is built on funny enough, the Google stack, which is obviously where Patrick came from, so that every image in the video recuts the video using the most memorable shots. So that's where the AI piece comes in, is around this memorability, and it knows what images are memorable, apparently. Again, oh, it's suddenly decided to play. Well, you get the idea anyway. So again, in terms of testimonials, good results. This is from Nestle. have a dog food brand called Purina. I'll just quickly let this play.
So we ran a number of different variants in the digital display banners. The breed of the dog, the product, the call to action. We also localised the ratings and reviews and the message depending on where the banners were being served. By having a number of different variants, it enabled us to really understand and test what worked and what resonated with the consumers. Any messages that weren't resonating were immediately dropped, which ensured that we really drove up performance throughout the campaign.
We worked closely with Zenith to absorb their targeting strategy and ensure that we were always going to show the right creative for their media buy.
Adlib's technology enabled us to bring 216 different variants online as part of the campaign.
These creative variants can be automated at the touch of a button. We saved Purina bakers 59% of their projected production costs.
The campaign was really successful. We actually increased click-through rate by over 40%. By optimising both the media and the message, we ensured that we were making our spend work harder. What we saw was that we drove a between 28 and 40% return on media spend.
Okay, so some pretty good numbers there. Yeah, proving yet again that the power of some of this technology. So there's three companies I sort of wanted to shine a bit of a spotlight on. Just a few final wrap-up thoughts. The first of which is this is very much not the end of creativity or creative people. Those assets that have been created still have to come from somewhere. And also, typically, what it's doing is it's doing the heavy lifting of sort of the stuff that's really tedious and not good use of people's times. So by doing that heavy lifting, all that versioning and creating, which doesn't take a genius to sort of do it. It should, in theory, leave creative people to focus on what they do best, which is, the big leaps in thinking and stuff that, frankly, a machine would, probably will never be able to do. So that's my quick spin through. Obviously, happy Christmas, everyone. Goes without saying. If you'd like to get a copy of the deck, that's my email address, matthew@woolf.co. And yeah, very happy to take questions. I see there's been a bit of chat going on. So,
thank you, Matthew. Any questions from anyone? I have one, if no one else wants to go first. I'm just curious whether there are like any other tools which you thought about including in this presentation and you didn't, especially tools for organizations which probably can't really afford the more high-end tools, if you know what I mean, like startups or solo entrepreneurs. Because as you were talking, I was checking fees. They seem to be over $10,000.
Yeah, Phrasy's a bit more expensive. I've seen Oren's talked about Copy AI. I don't know if they're a bit low, sort of a bit cheaper in the market. I mean, I would say Pencil are very much aiming themselves at D2C, direct-to-consumer businesses who don't necessarily have huge amounts to spend. I think that's where they see the most interesting growth of their platform, because if you're direct to consumer, you're not just doing the marketing, you're also getting a really, really direct signal back about the effectiveness of it. In a way, it's harder in a way for really big brands to do some of this stuff, precisely because if you're Unilever and you rely on a retailer, so I sell Persil washing up liquid and I sell it into Sainsbury's, I know how many have been sold, but I have no idea who bought them or why they bought them or when they bought them. So actually, in a weird way, smaller businesses that have a much tighter ecosystem and a feedback loop are going to be better at doing this kind of stuff, at least initially. I don't think, I mean, none of this stuff yet is aiming themselves at kind of real mom and pop retailers and, one-man bands. They are aiming themselves at sort of decent, sort of that next level up of startups and small businesses, maybe 10 people, that kind of end. So yeah, interesting.
I see. Nice. Okay. Interesting to see where this is heading. David Hearn. David, I see you have a question. Let me unmute you.
Is the end of the cookie going to?
Just interested in, there's a lot of talk in the advertising industry about Google rules and elsewhere about sort of changing how data is collected off of consumers, particularly the sort of end of the cookies, so we can't track people so well. Do you think this will have an impact on these kind of AI approaches because they're very data hungry?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the answer is yes and no, right? Sorry, it's a really boring answer, but if you think about just take them in order, you go, well, Pencil mostly rely on Facebook and their algorithms so completely unaffected because they don't really, it's not a problem. They don't, it's first party data. Phrasey is all about email. So again, not such an issue because you will know, again, it's first party data. I think the issue might be more around the third of those because I think once you're looking at banner and display, you're more likely to be in that world. But it's just a question of the richness of the feedback, isn't it? Obviously, the more signals you can get from your customer, the better. So I think it might impact that, but I think they're just going to be, personally, I think there'll just be other ways around it. And it'll be much more about first party data. I mean, there was an example earlier, wasn't there, talking about Daily Mail and sharing their information with 300 people. Well, that might not happen anymore, but you'll still get the information back from the Daily Mail, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I suppose that is one of the issues, that we're going to be, as advertisers, even more beholden to, I think, the social media companies. I think their advertising is going to appear even more attractive to us because we're going to be able to use their data, which they own. And it's just a slight concern I have. It's actually going to limit our choices as to where we will put our advertising because their data, as you say, is first party data, so they can control it. But that's just the way of the world, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Valerio just made a good point on the chat, which is most sites utilize Google Analytics, so the cookies would be irrelevant to them as well. So, I mean, yeah, we're all going to face a change. I don't think it's necessarily for the bad either. I'm not a big fan of my data being spread to all and sundry personally.
Yeah, so
no, I think in theory we should have more control going forward, but let's see.
I'll give you my view on this question. So there's been effectively a big shift in terms of spend from display towards social and search anyway. And because social tends to happen, kind of progressively more mobile apps, which are not really affected by cookies, and also, search, obviously search for Google, there is a display component to it. So they obviously have display and they have search. But obviously search is a big part of their revenue driver compared to, say, the display side. And then a lot of the rest of, so search and social, 66% of digital spend, that Facebook and Google are a big chunk of that. And then display is some sort of percentage of that total revenue split. Now, I think the programmatic targeting will have a big impact on desktop because of cookie-based limitations, yes. In terms of AI-based solutions, all the ones we've talked about today so far effectively require large amounts of data, and they tend to be either kind of image-based or text-based, and therefore they're not going to be affected in any particular or significant way. I think cookies from an advertiser perspective, and this is already happening. So search, for example, Google have limited the search term report, which gives you visibility on specific keywords. And now it used to be 100% visible. Now it's 27% of them aren't visible anymore. So they're becoming more opaque, and the advertiser has less visibility over what search terms people are actually typing in. So I think that visibility will limit, which will directly translate into a lower return on investment for advertisers in terms of cookie death, but it's not going to have a direct linear impact on AI, on the solutions we talked about today. It will impact tools that plug into the programmatic landscape. So demand side platforms and data management platforms. And data management platforms actually, I've got another project I'm running, which I've looked at the traffic to the MarTech landscape over the last 3 years. And the DMP software category is in massive decline. There's a total traffic. And I reckon that's partially related to cookie death. So we will have an impact, but not from anything we specifically talked about today.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add to that, which is the whole programmatic space to me has always been, as a marketer, a bit of a weird one anyway. Everyone says they don't look at banners, and there's a truth to that. Whereas they do content that's scrolling in their feed, people do look at it. So there's just in terms of attention and trying to get mind space, the psychology of it. I welcome that that change in the programmatic space.
Yeah, just to extend on that, there was a piece of research recently on display on programmatic, and about 11% of all the spend in programmatic media disappears in the supply chain, and no one knows where it goes. So it's just an incredibly problematic supply chain, and on top of that, there's fraud. So there's not only a lot of hidden players taking away, siphoning money, but there is fraud. But it is huge. It's probably in the hundreds of millions, if not billions, of spend. So not to minimize how significant it is. It's just that a lot of big brands like Coca-Cola and Dove and Nike, they burn hundreds of millions in the marketing budgets, and they don't really know where that money is going when it's on programmatic, but they feel a compulsion to spend because of what the agencies are telling them. And some agencies have a lot of unscrupulous tendencies to get backhanders, or it's a black box. So it's a very problematic space.
Media agencies. Let's focus that.
Yeah, not all media agencies either, just a portion of the media agencies as well. Not everyone's problematic or dodgy in the marketing world, just 99% of us. Yeah. That was a marketing joke. Data scientists did not take me literally. That was not statistically valid.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting conversation. I myself not very familiar with this whole, issue of like third-party cookies, how it will affect advertising. I guess I have to do some reading about this. If there are not any more questions, then I'd just like to move on to the final session, where I'm going to ask a question to pretty much everyone, including our participants and our audience, as to where they believe the space is heading, what's the future of AI and data science in marketing. So feel free to express your opinion, whatever this might be.
Slide, do you mind if I kick off? So I have there's one thing that I think everything that I've been talking about implies, which is smaller agencies. So because you can now do some of this stuff, you don't need to have massive studios full of people. You can suddenly, a small startup agency with 8 people can suddenly feel like an agency with 200 people. So I think one of the implications, maybe not next year, but like longer term, will be superpowering some of these people, and people with very small businesses might take away business from quite large agencies. This is more on the creative and content creation side. So I think that's something I'd like to see. The other thing I would say is different skills. I think the worlds of AI and data analytics and data science haven't really, there's not really a crossover with the world of creative and marketing, or it's very small crossover. I think that crossover has got to get bigger. I think from both sides, both those worlds have to kind of start understanding each other. And I guess that's kind of how I see my role, and what Woolf do is trying to mediate and translate between those two worlds so they can understand each other better.
Yeah, it's a good question as to what the future holds. I think there's a lot of will be a lot of disintermediation. I don't mean in terms of like people who are in the middle specifically, as much as when it comes to video editing, you now no longer need to go to a professional video editor. You now have a software that's smarter than a video editor can be. And what I think also now, with the rise of influencers, we're going to have the rise of micro influencers, and people's content fragmentation on their personal social profiles is going to expand, and they're going to become better at producing content. And I think if you think about how cameras evolved, a few years ago, buying a DSLR would have been prohibitively expensive, and now everyone with an iPhone has a 4K camera. Then the standard of high quality production will continue to increase. The Netflixes, the Avengers of the world, that production quality, the Hollywood studio, you'll need tens of millions to compete. And then the quality and the standards is just increasing. And then what that implies is that a lot of stuff that's like bread and butter for copywriters, designers, editors is going to be circumvented with AI. I mean, the copy AI is a great example of producing copy that's actually equivalent to what a lot of copywriters can do with the click of a button. And I think it will just continue to make a lot of people develop different specialized skills that are required for large data sets and kind of using data in smarter and more creative ways, and traditional skills will progressively decay. So I think that, and I think it's going to happen across visual mediums and written mediums and anything that humans can do. And I think it's already happening, you know, with like the deep fake face that you can see where people's faces are morphing, or you can see it on the copy examples, the video examples, and the image creation. But also, I don't know if you saw this example where they were able to produce photos of humans that don't exist. And it was like a realistic photo of a human being that doesn't exist. And then you now have Instagram influencers who are virtual, who have more following and make more money than real people, which is actually surreal when you think about that. That 3D animated character makes more money than a real person, doesn't even exist. So I think that's where things are heading. But at the end of the day, it comes down to exceptional creativity and differentiation. And that means you need to be doing something unique or distinct, or be the first, you know, to have a real impact because of the rate of change and how things are happening.
That's a good point. Just to add something to what you mentioned about creating humans which don't exist. This is achieved by GANs, generative artificial networks. And next week, for anyone who's interested in this technology, I'm actually running another meetup called AI and Creativity. And we have some people who are going to talk about this, including Gauthier from the Obvious Collective, which is the Obvious Collective were the first people to sell an AI artwork on an auction for over $100,000 using exactly this kind of technology. So if anyone is interested, then make sure to join this meetup as well.
If I may just make a brief comment in terms of what lies ahead, I think I've got 2 points. So firstly is about taking ownership of our data, because I think it starts from this whole idea of skipping adverts, blocking advertisements, and again, the table is going to turn. So if we can decide to even block adverts, what lies ahead? Again, the question is about cookies. If cookies is no longer available, what's the prospect for advertising and marketing as a profession? Is this something that will be done by individuals? And coming from a university setting, I think I've seen that also coming in terms, I think that goes with Matthew's point about agencies. You've got students now graduating and starting their own small agency, 2-3 people coming together to start a social media agencies. And again, they are really doing well, at least competing with bigger brands. So I think that's an area I'm looking at regards to the future. Like individuals, we will be more mindful and taking control of our data. And also in terms of the entrepreneurship and also students, people starting up their own small agencies to compete with the big ones.
So I guess everyone says that the future is going to be more equal in a sense for the little guys, right?
I think it's interesting. I first got to know Matthew through another group around creativity and AI, and it's really interesting because I've been part of that group for a couple of years, and it was purely set up to actually try and dispel some of the concerns in the creative industry around the impact of AI on advertising and on their jobs as being creatives in advertising. And I think there's still some of that suspicion there, but I think a lot of it has moved on because creative people can see how the boring parts of their jobs can actually be eliminated, and they can focus on the things they really have a passion for. However, I totally agree that in the big agencies, this is still seen as a massive threat. When I've talked, I come from the agency world, but now I'm a supplier into the agency world. But when I talk with people in large agencies about the issues of using AI to stimulate creativity, it's like you're talking to a brick wall. They don't want to hear about it because there's obviously some worry there that it's going to kind of dismantle the whole big agency structure.
The good software always superpowers small people, right? So when you go and talk to a big agency, it's like walking into the Holiday Inn and telling them about Airbnb. You know, Airbnb allows everyone who's got a bedroom to have the marketing power of the Ritz-Carlton. or Uber allows everyone who's got a phone in their pocket to have a car service as if they've got a chauffeur. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen is these smaller players who are really forward facing on some of this technology are just going to disrupt some of those big agencies. They're going to look, maybe not this year, maybe not this year, but eventually they're going to just collapse. I think, by the way, I think there probably will still be a role for a few of them, but it's just they're going to be whittled down, and the sort of smaller or medium-sized players, people who cannot, really deliver effectiveness at the right price are going to really suffer.
Okay, I think the only issue there is the data. My only concern about all that is whether, because the data is so important and it is controlled by a small number of organizations, whether that's going to tip it. I do remember a friend of mine used to work at Vice Media, and WPP bought a big stake in Vice Media, and they kind of, part of the issue I felt with that was the agencies wanting to have more control over the owners of the media. And therefore having control of the data, and therefore maybe getting more control over clients. That hasn't happened yet, but I could see that still happening, where that's where the big agency networks will see how to get more power back again.
Great comments. Anyone else would like to add anything from the audience? I know there are some people who have been silently listening. Okay, so I guess if there are no more comments, no one else wants to add anything, then I guess we can conclude. So I'd like to thank everyone who was here, especially our speakers, Oren, Emmanuel, and Matthew. Thank you for the great presentations. Thank you, David, for your input as well. Thank you, Valerio. So I guess we can all agree that even though a virtual meetup has its own challenges, I think we did quite well. So pretty happy about it. And I saw that some of you signed up for the meetup next week for AI and creativity. So I'm looking forward to seeing you on that one as well. Thank you. If anyone is interested in giving a talk in a future meetup, or just wants to talk data science or marketing or whatever, feel free to get in touch. I would be more than happy to speak to you. And hopefully then in the next year, we can organize an in-person meetup. Maybe we'll have another virtual one until then, who knows, depending on the interest. So yeah, thank you, and hope to see you again soon. And now I'll be ending the presentation. Bye, everyone.